Here are the rules. When I say the word scriptural, I mean a full idea, thought, or concept that is given by inspiration of God and is profitable for doctrine, for reproof, for correction, for instruction in righteousness. When I say the word biblical, I mean the idea, thought, or concept that appears in the Bible but may or may not be consistent with Scripture. The use of anything biblical must have witness with the Scripture to be Scripture. Okay, when I say the Word, I mean Jesus the Christ and sentences directly attributed to Jesus the Christ, having literally spoken them. Now that you know the rules, let's go.
When I was in seminary, I used to wear a button on my backpack, this button, that said, "Who would Jesus deport? Let faith guide your position on immigration." This always garnered a lot of attention, not necessarily in seminary, but frequently whenever I would travel and people would look at the button on my backpack. And people always had opinions about who Jesus would deport. I would frequently find out about those opinions, especially if I was traveling and I was, say, in an airport and I was sitting next to someone on the airplane, and I would hear a long opinion about who they thought Jesus might deport. A lot of folks were Christian and advocated for forced deportation. And I would ask what exact Bible passages framed their notion of that. And of course, they couldn't come up with any. Because if there's one thing that the Bible is clear about, it's immigration. The Bible has a definite opinion on this. The foreigner shall be treated as a citizen in your land. Welcome the stranger, for I was a stranger and you welcomed me. Quotes from the Bible. Just a few of the over 30 quotes about how we are to welcome everyone and see them as children of God. You know, it occurs to me that one of the things that we're doing when we're at church, and especially when we're at this meal, is envisioning a world without borders, a world without division, a world where absolutely everyone is seen as a child of God with inherent worth and dignity. Jesus had a name for that place, that vision. He called it the reign of God on earth, and then called us to work for it each and every day of our lives.
First, I want to thank you, Dr. Reverend Caleb, for delivering your points. This privateer volley has nothing to do with throwing anybody who perceives themselves as a son of God under the bus. This is not my intention whatsoever. What I do want to do is volley the scriptures back with you on this, because I do see immigration as a little bit of a different situation. First of all, let's talk about the Bible's clarity on immigration. You say, Reverend Dr. Caleb, that you do believe that the one thing for sure, you said, that the Bible is very clear about is immigration. Well, the Bible is clear about everything that it brings forth. That's the reason it's called the Bible. It brings forth Scripture, and Scripture is important because it's good for correction and reproof. It's good for those things. So the Bible is good for all things. So let's begin with that. Now, Dr. Caleb, let's talk about your comments concerning foreign treated as citizen on your land. Totally right. And yes, that is by my definition very biblical. However, in context, it's not scriptural, and here's why. If you go to Leviticus chapter 19, you can find the verse that you're talking about at Leviticus 19:34 that says, "But the stranger that dwells with you shall be unto you as one born among you, and you shall love him as yourself. For ye were strangers in the land of Egypt, and I am your God." And you are correct in stating what you stated. However, there is no there is no condition that comes without terms. And the terms are well stated in Leviticus chapter 19. The law of the land is very, very sure. And God expected the members of his nation to conduct themselves in a particular way. And he expected those who sojourned among them to also be of that condition. If they were not of that condition, if they did not obey those terms and conditions, then those people would be prosecuted just like any other, just like the regular citizen. There were also terms and conditions for those who committed crimes. Those who committed heinous crimes, there were cities of refuge that they could go to, and those cities of refuge would protect them until such a time as they could go and get a fair trial. So I am completely in agreement with you that yes, the foreigner should be treated as a citizen in your land, but only when they assimilate to the rules and the laws in which your foreign land has. That is what the real indenture is in Scripture. Now, I have a need to go a little bit off script here, because it's important to understand that part of the reason why it's so difficult to understand immigration today is because we have subsets of so-called law that exist out there in the world. In the United States, there's a law concerning immigration that people have to come through a particular portal to be granted permission to come in and assimilate to the culture and customs of the land. That isn't any different than it's ever been with even ancient Israel. Okay? It's always been that way. Assimilation to the culture and the traditions of the particular place has always been a huge part. However, in the day that we live, since we are so far removed from a time when the presence of God was with us, we have forgotten the ideas of the fear of God. We don't really know what the fear of God is anymore. And the scriptures tell us that that's the beginning of wisdom. And wisdom is a large part of what's necessary to understand the principle of immigration. It's unwise to bring people in that are going to be so far adverse to your culture, to your customs, that they're going to purposely come in and create issues, okay? Which is what you have going on today. A lot of people who come into this land are adverse to our culture, are adverse to our customs, and unless they find a group somewhere where they can fit into the culture and custom, they don't ever fit in, and it leads to it leads to criminal action. So that's part of the structure differential that we're dealing with today. At the time of ancient Israel, they had just begun that walk. The fear of God was with them because he was literally present with them. Today, people don't feel the presence of the Holy God. They don't feel the presence of their King, Jesus Christ. They don't feel that presence. In fact, a lot of people deny it. We are faced with a crisis. We are in a place of crisis, immigration-wise, where because of the lack of the fear of God, we have political entities making decisions based on policy set by those who are in quote-unquote office. Okay? And we need a different system. We need a different system. And that's where I'm going to come later at the end of this video, because I want to give everybody an understanding that there is an opportunity to go into a different system. But within this system that I call the Babylonian system that we live in today, that's adverse to God in every particular way, it's just not going to be possible for us to implement the changes and the mindset needed in order to do proper immigration in accordance with Scripture. Okay? It's just not possible. We're going to have to do something else. That I'll talk about later. But I got a little more. Now, Dr. Caleb, let's deal with this other conversation that you were having, talking about seeing us all as children of God. When you say children of God, I'm assuming that you're talking about the sons of God. We are not all children of God, but as many as received him, to them gave he power to become the sons of God, even to them that believed on his name, which were born not of blood, nor of the will of the flesh, nor of the will of man, but of God. So John 1:12 through 13 is what I just read to you from. We are not all God's children. It's actually impossible for us to all be God's children. It is only them who have received him that have the power to be sons of God. So the idea that every human on earth is children of God or should be received as children of God is an absolute untruth, and it cannot be understood as scriptural. You also mentioned a world of no borders, no division, that everyone is seen as a child of God with inherent worth and dignity. Well, for sure, we want everyone to be seen with inherent worth and dignity. The scriptures are very clear about that. No question there. However, a world with no borders, have you not read in the Revelation the scripture that talks about the kingdom of heaven and how it has walls and borders? If the kingdom of heaven has borders that protect it from those who are outside the walls, then aren't we told to pray on earth as it is in heaven? So should we not look to heaven first to determine what it should be like on earth? So borders are not an issue. That's just what separates cultures and customs between people. You have some cultures and customs of people that love Jesus the Christ, and you have other cultures and customs of people who actually are disparaging people from loving Jesus the Christ. You have all kinds of adversity out there when it comes to cultures. So borders are actually great for that purpose. No division. That's the very reason why Jesus came, was to bring a sword, not to bring peace and unity to the earth and have everybody sit around a campfire and sing Kumbaya. That is not the reason why Christ came. He came actually to separate the wheat from the chaff. He said he'd wait till the end to do so, but in fact, that is the responsibility of the Son of God, the one who is inheriting this earth as his inheritance, and we in co-heirs of that property. So to even speculate of no borders, no division, and have this utopian view of how we're all going to sing kumbaya together and have this great place called Earth where we could all live and be so amazing. That's just not an acceptable picture, and it's not a picture that Scripture puts forth for sure. Now let's end this program. Let's look at Revelation chapter 18, verse 4 and 5. It says, "And I heard another voice from heaven crying, or saying, Come out of her, my people, that ye be not partakers of her sins, and that ye receive not of her plagues. For her sins have reached unto heaven, and Elohim has remembered her iniquities." The scriptures declare that we have an opportunity to come out of Babylon. Babylon being any culture, any custom, any nation, any organization, any corporation that is not in full trust of Jesus the Christ and his system, his ways, his particular ways. Anyone adverse to those things is Babylon. That's what Babylon is defined as in Scripture. It's the great, the great and terrible. And that is certainly at this time and in this juncture, the United States has to be lumped in with any other nation in the world who has in fact vastly moved away from the ways of Jesus Christ, the King of Kings. He was given a kingship. And in Matthew chapter 28, it proclaims that he is King of heaven and earth. Not one day coming, but he's already king. So he's already king, then we live by his decrees, we live by his laws, we live by his ways. We are to come out of Babylon, not work with Babylon, not fix Babylon, not attempt to protest in Babylon, not do anything in Babylon, but to come out of Babylon that we might be able to come away from her plagues. So, that is the opportunity that we have before us today. And when it comes to the discussions that we've had here about Dr. Caleb, hey, again, I'm not here to throw anybody under the bus who says they love Jesus. But let's be real about Scripture, and let's take it seriously and understand the true nature of immigration and what it really means. It's about assimilating into a culture and a custom. That's what it is. And if you have gang members and you have others who are not assimilating into the culture, that is a great reason for deportation. Would you rather them go to a city of refuge and await trial in order to, then be discarded? Or would it be better to just send them back? So, deportation is not the awful, cruel creature that corporate media makes it out to be. It's actually a much nicer thing than what could possibly come from a trial. With that, thank you for watching, and tune in to our next Volley, where we tackle the next question or the next video that comes across my feed. Everything we do here at Privateers Volley, it's all about the blood.